Hi, thanks a lot for sticking around for this session. Let me give you a little bit of context as to why they would ask me to talk about monetization of digital out-of-home. I started my first agency and consulting firm 34 years ago that is still around. It consults with some of the largest global digital out-of-home place-based media companies, companies like Play Network, TouchTunes, Ultra TV, and others, and it's highly focused on experiential environments and retail integration for consumers. I also, because of the work that I do with the DSF and the Global Console, I work with some of the CEOs of the largest global media firms, creative agencies, and technology companies. And a lot of the work that we're starting to do now with Nancy at OAAA and Kim and FEPE and the other associations is really geared towards creating a much more synergistic opportunity between the various players within digital out-of-home, because digital out-of-home truly has to be embedded within the media and advertising ecosystem for us to really have a land grab for the type of share in media dollars that we should have. So those of you who are in the room who are involved in monetization of digital out-of-home and gaining media traction and media dollar traction, I saw this in London last week and thought it was a perfect representation of what we deal with day in and day out.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here. And if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
So, you know, obviously I love the space. I started Smart Bomb Media 10 years ago because I saw the promise of what digital out-of-home would be, especially with the disintermediation of traditional media that is out there and the fact that consumers don't have to interact, they don't have to engage, and they can dispose of some of the traditional media formats. But I will be very happy when it's no longer like herding cats and getting those media dollars. So let's look at what the strength of digital out-of-home is. And I know you've heard a lot of this over the last few days at the conference, but digital out-of-home truly provides traction and a format that very few media opportunities out there can provide. 10 times more eye contact than static alone. People are 33% more alert when they're out of home than when they're in their office or in their home. Digital out-of-home is the world's second fastest growing ad medium, second only to digital. Now understand that's because we had such a small percentage of the media share over the trailing years before that the growth is substantial, but it's nowhere near we actually should be on a global basis. It catches the attention of adults. 78% of adults say that they notice and recall advertising in out-of-home. And indoor digital out-of-home has 63% overall recall. And actually, Mark, who was just on, in his latest media study, he does a quarterly study that everybody in the industry should actually keep tabs on because it truly provides a granular view of how the industry is doing. But digital out-of-home is by far the highest in recall comparison that is out there. And that takes into consideration the fact that we're not really utilizing all the tools that we currently have available to us in order to make the advertising more impactful. And more to the point, a lot of the creative that we're getting is creative that is repurposed from either print ads or TV ads and not purpose-built specifically for the out-of-home environment. When that does start to occur, our recall is actually going to far exceed what it is right now. Then when we look at the ad spend growth forecast, and this is from JCDecaux's report, we see a global ad spend growth rate, so for all media, 2018, 4 to 5%. Out of home is 3%, and that represents $30 billion in US dollars in 2018. And then when you look at digital out of home, that component, that's where there's really truly significant growth going on right now. 15% growth in 2018, and it's going to represent 18% of the total out of home spend. So there's a lot of talk about what is going to truly drive this industry forward within the media ecosystem. And for the last 5 years, and we're involved in this at the DSF, but with all of the organizations and the conferences that you go to, you see a lot of talk about programmatic. But there's serious issues with programmatic specific to our industry. The reason why programmatic works so well in the traditional media formats of digital and mobile space itself is because on a global level, there is a cohesive ecosystem that has been built that has very, very strong standards, and there's APIs and toolkits built that allow all the various constituents, whether they be ad tech companies, whether they be media buying companies, whether they be programmatic platforms, to actually tap in to that ecosystem and have visibility to the media outlets that are out there and be able to seamlessly get massive scale on a single platform. And that's really a key factor within the media buying industry. If you can't get a massive scale, even on a local level, they want to have penetration for the specific demographic that they're going for. And in digital out of home and in out of home, it's very difficult to do that because there is no single platform standard that is out there. And more importantly, a lot of the industry players, from the CMS companies to the programmatic companies to the networks themselves, have built black boxes around themselves, and they don't want to open up to a wider system because they feel that they have a competitive advantage for their specific. And that's a real problem for our industry. And it's one of the reasons why our industry associations are working together to truly educate all the constituents and all the players within our space that we aren't competitive against each other, in a sense, on the media side, and that if we can integrate and stitch together all of our interstitial platforms that we have and allow access to the buying platforms and to the media buyers that would give them visibility to massive scale, that's where we're going to see some real growth within digital out of home. Also, programmatic by a lot of the media owners themselves has been viewed as a race to the bottom in CPM. Now, that doesn't have to be the case, but a lot of the fruit has been borne out that it actually is, where media owners will actually see long-term clients that they had that did planned media buys at a certain CPM level suddenly are buying in programmatic as well, and they're seeing 1/3, 1/4, 1/5 of the CPM price for that. And part of the reason is a lot of the media buyers view the space on programmatic as remnant space, and it's truly not remnant space, it's just unsold space. And so it's still the same premium placement that they had before on premium networks, but it's not viewed that way. And so in order to overcome that, if we can get true scale and educate the media agencies and media buyers, that will alleviate a lot of that issue. In doing so, and in building together an industry-wide infrastructure that would allow that, what we can then do is more closely align ourselves with the full media play and be considered a prime component of a media infrastructure for any brand that is out there. Because remember, there are very few elements out there within the media ecosystem that can actually deliver the type of activation and brand awareness and brand consideration, especially as close to the point of consideration or point of purchase as digital out-of-home can do. So the technology integration is the true key to all this. Integrated mobile, visual, beacon, tracking tech, both to trigger contextual, relevant content and provide powerful data back to the client. This will deliver explosive growth within our industry. And when the CMOs and creatives and media buyers fully understand what the capability is, and I'm going to show you some of the capabilities of our platform that digital out-of-home can deliver, they will design more campaigns from the creative standpoint. And when the creative agencies get involved and start creating for out-of-home, we're going to see much more dedicated budgets, similar to what they see in Europe that we're not seeing here in the United States as far as truly planned dedicated budget. And that will occur when the creatives and the CMOs are in that frame of mind that out-of-home and digital out-of-home has to be a space that they play in. And then lastly, industry-wide open standards and API toolkits can deliver that true scale. And what we're working on with OAAA and DPAA and FEPA and the DSF and Geopath, that really is all about creating that ecosystem and structure in the cloud that could provide that seamless integration. So here's an example of creative using the technology.
We started with a simple leafleting campaign, so we could identify the people who love dogs. And with paper-thin RFID chips embedded in the leaflets, we made them discoverable. Hidden sensors alerted the digital screens when someone with a leaflet approached, triggering our dog to appear. Whichever direction they approached, a different video was triggered. Just like a real stray, our dog appeared wherever they went, trying to attract their attention. Then he followed them from one poster to another, all around the area. Once he'd made his presence felt, he told people what he wanted them to do. With multiple screens all over the area, our dog followed people no matter which route they took. Over a 2-week period, we directed thousands of people to the Battersea website and the Twitter feed where lots of lonely dogs were featured, bringing new leads to Britain's oldest dogs home.
So this ad campaign was created by Ogilvy One in London, and it utilized actually fairly simple technology, RFID technology coupled with beacons placed throughout the Westfield malls to know the specific location of those consumers that had the pamphlet and actually were holding and kept the pamphlet as they moved through the mall. And it created a truly experiential kind of one-to-one, even though large format and spectaculars are one-to-many. It felt like a one-to-one campaign to these consumers. And another great aspect behind this campaign is the fact that it generated a massive amount of earned media through the press and press releases, and even more through social media of people taking snapshots, people taking videos of it. This actually went global, even though it was a campaign in a single Westfield mall in England. The next one is by Dino Burbage. He sits on our Global Digital Out-of-Home Council. He's the head of technology innovation for WCRS, which is a great creative agency in London. This is one of the most awarded campaigns in out-of-home. So this used widespread camera tracking technology on the billboards themselves to actually know how many people were looking at the screen, how long they were looking. It showed their image in that bottom bar along the bottom of the spectacular, which got them to notice even more, and others around them then looked at the screen. And based on logic on the number of people that were actually watching, it triggered the content to change so that she healed, and then you had the actual call to action. So that's another example of existing current technology that's out there that's widespread, that is used to create much more impactful creative. So lastly, I've got to wrap up because we've got another session starting. But one of the things that the media owners and the network owners really have to focus on is who their constituents are. They obviously still have to focus on the media agencies and empower the media agencies with the ability to understand our space, but also to buy in the space. They need to go to the brands directly as well and establish relationships with them. But really important is making sure that they don't forget to look at the consultancies. There's a massive sea change going on within the advertising industry right now. And Ad Age's report in 2017 of the top 10 global agencies lists 4 consultancies in the top 10. It's the first time that's ever happened. And so we need to make sure that we're approaching and partnering with our media agency partners, the brands themselves, and obviously the consultancies that have entered into that space. So thank you very much.